So the NBA is coming back, and I have a few thoughts on the resumption of the season. And before I go into my complete thoughts on the resumption of the season, talking about the bubble that's going on in Orlando, the campus situation that the NBA has set up, the insane number of cases that are rising daily in Florida because their government is just dumb and they don't take this pandemic seriously. I want to get this out of the way first. I want to talk about the topic that has been, I wouldn't say a hot stove topic, but we all know it's going to come. Whenever somebody wins the championship this season, people are going to be talking about whether or not this championship should have an asterisk next to it. And I gotta say, I just don't agree with that at all. I've never agreed with the term asterisk in any sport because I think winning a championship is hard. I hate it when people use the term asterisk to describe the Spurs' first title in 1999 during the 50-game lockout season. Yeah, like lockout seasons, they provide weird circumstances. You'll see teams like the Knicks make it to the finals as an 8 seed, but regardless, every team goes through the same circumstances as the other team. And yeah, sometimes you might get some wild variability, but winning a championship is still hard. And I don't remember it being used too much in the 2011 season when LeBron and the Heatles won their first championship in the 66-game lockout season. But I actually think this will be one of the tougher championships to win, given all of the crazy circumstances that have happened. An unprecedented pandemic, shutting everything down, players having to not only worry about the mental and physical strain of playing what is going to be, and I'll put the schedule up as I am recording this video. I will put the series of dates I'll put up the series of dates for the resumption of this season. They're going to be playing games almost every other day as they finish out the regular season. Then 3 days after that, barring that there isn't a play-in tournament for the 8th seed in the Western Conference, which we will talk about in a second, there's going to be a quick turnaround to play in the playoffs right after the season ends, and then you have to play with no home crowd. You have to play it just under weird circumstances that every team goes through. And I think this topic was first brought up by Taylor Rooks of Bleacher Report. It's basically saying that she thinks this championship should have an asterisk. And look, I'm not going to say I don't get the thought process behind that, but obviously I just wildly disagree. And she later tweeted a screenshot of a text I assume she got from Austin Rivers asking this question because it has been a topic her and other members of the NBA media have brought up. But Austin Rivers basically said, look, this is the toughest championship that anyone could win. So it should have an asterisk in the sense that this is probably going to be the toughest amount of circumstances to win an NBA championship. And I actually agree with that. It should be one of the tougher ones. If everybody is going through these same circumstances, everybody has to be cooped up on this Orlando campus at Disney World. I think this shows a team's mettle, so to speak. And if they end up winning the championship this year, then that should count for 2 trophies, I think, because you're playing a condensed schedule. Not only did you have a 4-month layoff, there's going to be so much variability from the 4-month layoff that I think people aren't realizing. If you're able to navigate, like if you're LeBron and the Lakers, or you're Giannis and the Bucks, who I think before the season stopped were the 2 clear favorites to come out of their respective conferences, and you're still able to navigate and pick up where you left off after a 4-month layoff and you're still able to win the title, that's impressive as hell to me. And I don't think it should have an asterisk whatsoever, because when it's dangerous using that term asterisk, because again, sports fans aren't exactly the most rational people. And look, I mean, it's not sports fandom unless you don't have a rationality, right? But fans who hate players or hate teams just love to discredit them in any way, and And so giving them leash with a term like asterisk, especially in something like this, I think is just, I mean, I'm not going to say dangerous, because again, this is just basketball sports commentary and none of this is really serious, but it's just going to be annoying trying to, argue with the next sports fan at a random bar, if bars ever reopen in the next few years, because honestly, who's going to want to go to a bar even after this pandemic is all over? I don't want to have to argue with sports fans who don't necessarily use the best logic about why this championship, I think, should be praised at least 3 times as more as the last championship or something like that. Tom Habistro of NBC Sports put out this really funny article basically listing all the championships throughout NBA history, all the NBA finals and the winners, and basically came up with every reason as to why that championship should have an asterisk, whether it was last year's finals where everyone on the Warriors basically got hurt and the Raptors ended up winning. You could put an asterisk by that, or the 2014 finals, where in game one in San Antonio, the air conditioning in the Spurs arena didn't work, and LeBron had to be carried off the court, and the Heat lost what was a very close game. Even though the Spurs won in 5, and honestly, that probably wasn't going to matter. That was a tone-setting game in that series, and you could put an asterisk by that. You could put an asterisk by the 2010 Lakers championship and the fact that Kendrick Perkins got hurt in Game 6, and for all the jokes we have about Kendrick Perkins now and how the last 5 years of his career he was basically a washed-up player, he was a defensive force in Boston, and you can go back and look at all the metrics and all that stuff. He was an important player on that team. He tears his ACL in Game 6, and then in Game 7, the Celtics had to resort to playing Rasheed Wallace, who was really old at that point, and he had a good game, but you could put an asterisk by that. You could go back through every NBA Finals and find an excuse as to why that team lost and why the other team won. Winning a championship in sports is hard, and I think, especially in these circumstances, this championship should not be discredited at all. So let's go to the actual season itself and some of the details that have been surrounding it. One, I'm really dubious as to if the season will finish or not. As I mentioned earlier, Florida's caseload keeps rising every day. I think a few days ago, or last week, Florida saw a record high 9,000 coronavirus cases confirmed, and it's because their government didn't take it seriously. They basically thought it wasn't real and they thought they were immune to it. And then, of course, the Florida residents didn't take it seriously. And now we're seeing a bunch of cases. And then this whole concept of the bubble is weird because owners and GMs and Disney employees get to come and go as they please on and off campus, while NBA players have to follow strict guidelines. And now players are worried about it. And that's another thing, too, that with this whole why people thought this championship should have an asterisk is because now players aren't showing up. Some players aren't showing up, guys like Trevor Ariza, Avery Bradley, Davis Bertans, and look, rightfully so. If any player decides not to go to Orlando, I don't blame them. I'm not like Evan Fournier, who's just going to idiotically question a player's quote-unquote manhood in some misguided attempt to sound like you're a better player or somebody like that. But that was another reason people wanted to use the term asterisk. Look, I don't blame anybody going to Florida right now, especially when you're getting daily reports of cases, just an astronomical amount of cases being confirmed every single day, right? So I'm sure they're going to finish the season because there's too many financial implications with this, especially since if they can't finish the season, the owners can probably just rip up the current CBA and then strike a new CBA deal where they basically screw the players over, and the basketball-related income is no longer basically 50-50. A lot of it will go to it'll probably be more like in the previous CBAs where it was like 53-47 or 54-46 or whatever. So there's a lot of financial implications if they don't play this season. It's just really dangerous. But the actual basketball part of it And I know, look, there was a 4-month layoff. It's the equivalent of an actual off season. So I can't expect teams to pick up right where they left off. And, you know, there is a valid argument that you can't really predict anything because there's too much variability. But I like talking sports, and I like pontificating, and I like, you know, coming up with scenarios and situations. Because talking about basketball is fun, and I'm not going to be a fuddy-duddy and try to be all, oh, look, we got to be realistic here. You can't predict anything. Look, some of that is true, but also I think there are some teams that could come into this situation with a little bit of an advantage, like the Toronto Raptors, and I liked watching the Raptors this year because they basically had that championship swagger, they had the chemistry, and without Kawhi there, the ball was popping a little bit more. Pascal Siakam was coming into his own. Like a team like that, or a team like the Celtics, who are kind of already have their chemistry down and know how to play together, or not just chemistry, just pieces that fit together. Like the Celtics have multiple wings that can ball handle and create their own shot. I think that is an advantage that they could use because, like I said, there's a 4-month layoff. Teams haven't played together in a while. And so having somebody that can just get their own bucket, I think in this situation is a more valuable skill set. Somebody like the Raptors, who have that championship chemistry and know how to play together regardless. I mean, you saw the Raptors won the championship last year. Kawhi leaves for LA, and then the Raptors almost seemingly pick up right where they left off. Except with a little bit more ball movement, and they arguably have the best coach in the NBA now in Nick Nurse, so he'll probably come up with some concoctions that I imagine Nick Nurse has just been in a basketball laboratory, just, you know, cooking up some stuff. There are some teams, even the Milwaukee Bucks, with the built-in system that they have, with, you know, spreading the court around Giannis, and then the new defensive scheme that they have where they basically just pack the paint and protect the rim. I think they have a set identity. Teams with set identities, I think, have a little bit of an advantage. I think young legs also have an advantage in this situation, or even teams that have top-end talent like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Sixers or the Rockets, for example. It's basically what I'm saying is, I guess as I'm talking this out, a lot of teams have their own advantages coming into the situation, and there is a lot of variability, but I do think there are some skill sets and some team play here, some team factors here where they'll have an advantage going into the playoffs. Now, I also want to talk about the battle for the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Right now, the Grizzlies have the 8th seed in the Western Conference, and they were kind of sliding, not a little bit, but a lot. The Grizzlies were 3-8 in their last 11 games, and their schedule was only going to get harder, as opposed to a team like the New Orleans Pelicans, where their schedule was going to be a bit easier. The Sacramento Kings were nipping at their heels, as well as the San Antonio Spurs and Portland Trail Blazers. And the battle for that 8th seed is going to be interesting because there is now a play-in tournament in play here. So basically, whoever is the 9th seed, if they are within 4 games back of the 8th seed, there is going to be an extra play-in game that's going to be played, and whoever wins that play-in game will be able to nab the 8th seed. Now, whether you want to say that's fair or not, look, we're in unprecedented times, and unfortunately, some teams are going to get the short end of the stick, like the Portland Trail Blazers, for example. Their schedule is going to be hellacious for the next for these last 8 games. Everybody's going to be playing 8 games, and the playoffs are going to start on August 17th. The play-in tournaments are going to be on August 15th and 16th, if they happen. Just pulling up the schedule here for the Blazers real quick. They're going to be playing the Grizzlies, the Celtics, the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Sixers, the Mavericks, and the Nets. I mean, honestly, you could see them winning 2 of those games. So the Blazers did also get the short end of the stick here, but I mean, you have to resume the season in some way, and unfortunately, some teams are just going to get the short end of the schedule, unfortunately. And if we do get a play-in tournament, I really hope that it's the Grizzlies and the Pelicans, because I think you're going to get a matchup, obviously, of two of the most exciting rookies in the NBA in Zion and John Morant. But, we'll see what happens. I mean, whoever's going to be the 8th seed is going to have the honor of playing the Los Angeles Lakers and a motivated LeBron James. So, I mean, have fun with that. Back to the Eastern Conference, there is a lot more variability there because I think teams like the Heat, the Raptor, I think basically anybody that's not the Bucks that's seeded 2 through 6, I think those are just toss-ups. I think all these teams match up well with each other. The Sixers obviously won the regular season series against the Celtics. The Heat and the Celtics. The Pacers, we could get a possibility. Right now, the 4-5 seed matchup, we could get a Pacers-Heat matchup, and we get to see the continuation of just the glorious Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren beef that we saw earlier this year. I mean, unfortunately, nobody cares about the Brooklyn Nets or the Orlando Magic because, one, the Brooklyn Nets had players testing positive for the coronavirus, and who knows if Spencer Dinwiddie is going to go to Orlando, even though he tested positive, but DeAndre Jordan already said he's not going. Just basically, who knows what skeleton of a Nets roster is going to show up. The Orlando Magic, they're just going to get demolished by the Bucks, 4-month layoff or not. I just don't see any way how the Magic can compete with the Bucks. But seeds 2 through 6 is going to be really interesting. I think the Bucks are obviously they are the absolute favorite, although they could fall victim to the variability that we could see in this. This is unprecedented. So yes, we shouldn't make concrete predictions, but that's why we're here, because, we like talking basketball, and I have missed the hell out of basketball. But there's a lot of fun scenarios that we could have here, and quite frankly, I'm just glad basketball's back. There are a lot of storylines to watch, a lot of storylines that we need to see through, that I want to see through, and it's going to be a really cool summer league type of environment, I think. Whenever we watch summer league, we get to see games constantly, and it's almost like a college atmosphere. There's multiple gyms, there's multiple games going on, so we're basically going to get 9 hours of basketball per day while we're all cooped up. Sign me up.